Today's question: why does your project have no owner even with a RACI chart? By the end of this session, you'll be able to construct and interpret a RACI matrix to ensure clear role assignment and establish single-point accountability for project tasks. PM Panda here. 2.5 decades delivering projects, PMP certified since 2003. The mistake I'm about to show you is how budgets really die, usually because nobody knows who is actually in charge of the spending. I have spent 25 years watching teams celebrate progress while the actual ownership of the project was as clear as mud, and today I am going to make sure that never happens to you. Imagine you are leading a massive project, perhaps a new hospital wing or a global software rollout, with a brilliant team and a detailed schedule. Then, a major deadline for the electrical certification or the database migration slips by without anyone noticing until it's far too late to fix it easily. You call an emergency meeting to find out what happened, and instead of a solution, you get 3 different people pointing fingers at each other while saying they thought the other guy was handling it. This isn't just a minor communication hiccup, it's a structural failure that can sink even the most well-funded initiative before it even gets off the ground. You've fallen headfirst into the classic "I thought they were doing it" trap, and it happens because your project lacks clear, granular ownership at the task level. It doesn't matter how talented your team is or how many degrees they have hanging on their walls. If you haven't defined exactly who is doing the work and who is answering for it, you are driving a car with 4 steering wheels and no brakes. Today, we are fixing this by breaking down the responsibility assignment matrix, specifically the RACI chart, to guarantee every single task has one true owner who cannot hide when things go sideways. We are moving past the academic definitions and getting into the real-world mechanics of how you stop the blame game and start delivering results. To fix this chaos, we start with the Responsibility Assignment Matrix, or the RAM, which is the ultimate marriage between your work breakdown structure and your org chart. Think of the RAM as a map that tells us exactly which person is glued to which specific work package or task. Without this map, your project plan is just an optimistic wish list of things that might happen if everyone feels like being productive that day. By using a RAM, you illustrate the hard, undeniable connections between the work that needs to be done and the specific human beings assigned to do it. It transforms a vague list of to-dos into a structured grid of human commitment. In professional certification exams, the RAM is a foundational tool because it ensures you aren't just managing abstract tasks, but managing the actual people responsible for those tasks. When you look at a properly constructed RAM, you should be able to see exactly where your human resources are being spent across the entire project lifecycle. More importantly, it allows you to spot gaps where no one is assigned or overlaps where too many people are tripping over each other's feet. It's about creating a visual representation of commitment that leaves no room for ambiguity or those forgotten deliverables that always seem to haunt project managers in the final week. The most common version of this matrix is the RACI chart, which stands for Responsible, Accountable, Consulted, and Informed. But don't let the acronym fool you into thinking it's just corporate fluff. When we say someone is responsible, we mean they are the doers, the ones actually swinging the hammer, writing the code, or filing the permits. Then we have the consulted and informed roles, which dictate the flow of information. Consulted people provide input before the task is done, while informed people just get a status update afterward. If you mix these up, you'll end up with stakeholders who feel ignored or, even worse, unnecessary meetings that kill your team's productivity and morale. Now we get to the most critical letter in the entire alphabet. A for accountable, which refers to the one individual with ultimate authority over the task's outcome. While you can have 10 people listed as responsible for doing the actual work, you must have exactly one person listed as accountable for the result. This is the single-point accountability rule, and it is the hill I am willing to die on as a project manager because it is the only way to ensure things actually get finished. If a task fails, the accountable person is the one I'm calling into my office to explain why, because they are the person who owns the success or failure of that specific item. In my experience, especially during large-scale tech rollouts, overlapping accountability is a death sentence for your schedule and your sanity. I've seen projects where 3 different managers were all labeled as accountable for a system deployment, which sounds great for collaboration, but is terrible for execution. When a critical decision had to be made about a security patch, those 3 managers spent 3 weeks debating instead of acting because no one wanted to take the final risk. A RACI matrix ensures there is only one person who can say yes or no, which removes the pointing fingers defense from your team's vocabulary forever. It brings a level of clarity that forces people to step up and actually lead. Let's look at a real-world scenario involving a global tech launch where we are migrating a massive customer database across 4 different continents. For the data migration work package, we might have a team of 3 junior developers listed as responsible because they are the ones writing the scripts and running the actual data cleaning tools. This makes perfect sense because they are doing the heavy lifting, but we wouldn't want them making the final call on data integrity standards. That's where the matrix becomes a lifesaver by clearly separating the people doing the work from the person who has to sign off on it and take the heat if it fails. In this database migration, the lead architect is the only name listed as accountable, meaning if the data ends up corrupted or the security protocols are breached, it is their head on the block. We list the regional sales directors as consulted because we need their expertise on how the data should be mapped to their local markets before the scripts are finalized. Finally, the project sponsor is listed as informed, meaning they don't need to know the technical jargon. They just need a confirmation email when the migration is 100% complete. If you try to make those sales directors accountable too, I promise you that the migration will never finish because they'll never stop arguing over the details. I've seen dozens of projects stall because managers treat the RACI chart like a participation trophy where everyone gets an A to make them feel important. Here is what most people get wrong after 25 years of me watching this play out in the trenches, assigning multiple accountables to a single task. This doesn't show teamwork. It diffuses responsibility so much that it effectively disappears into a black hole of indecision. If 2 people are accountable, no one is actually accountable. And your decision-making will freeze because neither person wants to be the one held liable if things go wrong. It's a recipe for disaster that I see repeated in almost every industry. The second major mistake is confusing the responsible role with the accountable role, which are 2 very different animals in the project management jungle. The person swinging the hammer is not always the person who signs off on the quality of the house, and forgetting that distinction is how safety violations and massive rework happen. You might have a contractor responsible for the wiring, but the lead engineer is accountable for ensuring the building doesn't burn down. For your professional certification exams, remember this simple rule. R is the doer, A is the owner. You can delegate the doing all day long, but you can never, ever delegate the ultimate accountability for the outcome. To wrap this up, remember that a responsibility assignment matrix is the essential bridge that connects your work packages to your team members. The RACI model is your best friend in this process, clearly defining who is doing the work and who is answering for the results before you ever start the task. Most importantly, you must enforce the strict rule of having only one accountable person per task to prevent the finger-pointing epidemic from destroying your project morale. If you have 2 people in the A column, you have 0 people actually watching the gate, and your project is already in trouble. Your actionable next step is to go back to your current project's RACI chart today and audit every single row for duplicate owners. If you find any task with more than one A assigned to it, remove the duplicates immediately and pick one person to be the true owner of that outcome. If this breakdown helped you stop the blame game in your office, hit like so I know to make more content like this. Subscribe if you want practitioner lessons every week that actually work in the real world without the academic fluff. I'm PM Panda, and I'll see you in the next one where we'll keep your projects out of the ditch.